Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday, Junior. Welcome back to Rising. We've got a great show planned for you all today, don't we, Emily?
Well, we sure do. We talk with Cenk Uygur. Tom Rogan is with us to discuss UFOs, and we have a fantastic panel. But first, we wanted to start with Biden's spat with CNN reporter Caitlin Collins yesterday. It all started when Collins pushed Biden to explain how his meeting with Putin was a constructive one, as Biden made it out to be. Let's take a look at the clip.
Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm not confident in changing behavior. What the hell? What do you do all the time? So when did I say I was confident?
You said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine.
What I said was, let's get it straight. I said what will change their behavior is if the rest of the world reacts to them and it diminishes their standing in the world. I'm not confident of anything. I'm just stating the fact.
But given his past behavior has not changed, and in that press conference after sitting down with you for several hours, he denied any involvement in cyber attacks. He downplayed human rights abuses. He even refused to say Alexei Navalny's name. So how does that account to a constructive meeting as President Putin framed?
You don't understand that. You're in the wrong business.
Okay, totally fair question, and presidents and the press are supposed to have an adversarial relationship. And it doesn't matter if they're covering Joe Biden or Donald Trump. They should be asking tough questions, and they should be asking questions that actually have substance to them. And this question does actually have substance to it, which is what I think, and I have no problem with Joe Biden going off on reporters at all. I think it's great. I think it's great. But, that is a completely reasonable question, to which I think his answer, why do you think this elicited such a strong response?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. I don't know, and my speculation is that it's been a long week. And, he's dealing with a 6-hour time change. And, he just got out of the meeting with Putin. So, he came out throwing elbows after he was dealing with a really, what he calls a tough adversary. If you want to run the world, if you want the top job, you got to be ready to handle the tough questions.
Of course.
And so I think, like you said, the question was completely fair. The response, maybe not so much so. I think that leads us to the next part where I think he actually did apologize, didn't he?
He did apologize. Yes, he did. So later on, Biden spoke to reporters on the tarmac. Let's take a look at that.
What concrete evidence do you have from these 3+ hours that suggests that any movement has been made? And I don't mean that to be
I know, but you're all,
question.
Look, to be a good reporter, you got to be negative. You got to have a negative view of life, okay? It seems to me, the way you never ask a positive question. Why, in fact, having agreement, we'll find out.
Yeah, again, it's the press's job to be negative. And I feel like on the right, I constantly had to sort of tell people that during the Trump administration. The media was crazy when it came to Donald Trump, of course. But that doesn't mean Donald Trump wanted tough questions. And we just all have to have this better understanding of what the media exists to do, which is hold people accountable, hold the powerful to account for their actions. And that doesn't involve, positive questions, as Biden says. He's right. It is the media's job to be negative, but to sort of lament that is a different story.
Well, is it really? Here's my question.
Celebrate it.
Yeah, is it really negative? My argument would be that it's actually not negative. It's just a counter narrative,
yes.
Right? The White House has its narrative, and it's the press's job to check them. Is this actually true? And you can't do that unless you question the actual narrative itself. So it's not really negative. I get what he was saying. Joe Biden's a positive guy, and he wants the best outcome here, and he wants the best presentation to the rest of the world, and he, I think, actually wants to correct this relationship. And you have to check as to whether or not it's actually going to be viable. And I think that's all that the press was doing and all that Caitlin Collins was actually doing here. And to his credit, he did apologize.
I was going to say, he apologized to Caitlin for being a wise guy, is what he said. He apologized to being a wise guy. So we also have that clip as well. He said he apologized for lashing out earlier in the day. Let's take a listen.
The thing that always amazed me about the questions, and I apologize for having been short on this before. If you were in my position, would you say, well, I don't think, man, anything's going to happen. It's going to be really rough. I think it's going to really be bad. You guarantee nothing happens. You guarantee nothing happens.
Now, Biden went on to say maybe he shouldn't have been such a wise guy. Caitlin Collins responded saying the apology was completely unnecessary, and Caitlin is completely correct. And, you know, Biden also said something to her. He kept using this word. He said, especially in public. He's supposed to be projecting confidence or projecting a certain image in public. And I think that gets to the substance here. We're talking about a couple of different things. We're talking about, on the one hand, Caitlin's question, which was totally fair, saying, why are you, at least publicly, being so confident that you've made inroads with Vladimir Putin? You know, what made you think that this was constructive, given that, for instance, he didn't say Navalny's name, given that, for instance, he didn't do all of these different things?
Sure.
Great question, fair question, and a question a substantive answer to would have been fantastic. But he's also getting at something really interesting, which is the theater of foreign relations, the public theater of foreign relations, which is so dependent upon the image and the messaging that leaders project, which may diverge from what they're saying privately, but at least publicly they're doing one thing, and that's what Biden is getting at, and that is not, I mean, it's kind of a crazy thing to say to a reporter, like, if you don't understand that I'm acting, you're in the wrong business. No, she does understand that you're acting, and that's why she's asking the question.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you know, look, I think in a leadership position, the best response would have been not to lose your cool and to give a substantive answer back to what really was a substantive question. Been a long week. Tough meetings throughout the entirety of it. You know, Uncle Joe got in there and he threw some elbows, and he apologized to his credit afterwards. But completely fair question, and you know, the media shouldn't be attacked for asking the questions that we, the public, actually want an answer to. So.
Some people in the media actually attacked Caitlin for asking the question, though. Like, there was pushback on Blue Check Twitter where people were saying, you know, Caitlin put words in Joe Biden's mouth for using the word confident, and Joe Biden never said he was confident. I mean, again, this is how you ask tough questions, because maybe he didn't exactly use the word confident, but that doesn't render the question unfair or useless. And so for the media, I think, to have some people in the media, it's not the media broadly. Caitlin had a ton of support in the media, but there were people who actually criticized Caitlin in the press for putting words in Joe Biden's mouth. And that reaction should terrify people, because if our press is defending the president from getting, I wouldn't even call it a difficult question, just a normal question, a reporter doing their job, then if that comes from, when that starts to come from the media itself, that's when you should be concerned.
Absolutely right. You know, look, it's the media's job to continually ask these questions. The media shouldn't be attacking the media for asking the questions that we want to hear. And I agree, it wasn't actually a tough question. It was a completely fair question, and you know, Joe Biden should have had an answer prepared for it.
What do you think about Biden's answer about in public, you know, where he was talking about, you know, if you don't understand that it's my job to do this in public, then you're in the wrong business. What do you think about the kind of the substance behind him making that argument that, look, I have to say some of these positive things about the meeting being constructive in public, even if it's different than my private experience, or even if it's different than what my advisors are talking about privately?
Sure. Look, I think that's correct. I think there's multiple things at play here in addressing that. And the first is, you don't want to walk into and or out of a meeting and say that it was the worst thing that you've ever been to, especially when you're on the world stage. Even if it was, you would never say that, because you set the bar so low for anything to happen thereafter, right? And you also put Putin in a defensive corner, and, you know, as another actor on the world stage, his reaction is going to be pretty tough in that regard. So I think having a positive outlook and giving the Russians and Putin the space to actually come to the table and do things like negotiate for Navalny's release is a good thing and a smart thing to do. And I think that's a good way to conduct foreign relations. And so he was following that protocol, and I think that's the right thing. Why would you walk into or out of anything saying this is the worst thing ever and he's terrible and we're never going to get anything, because then you guarantee that that's going to happen. You know, I'm an optimist, so I tend to err on that side of things, right? And you know, I know that you know, according to Joe, maybe journalists shouldn't be that way. Well, they're just not that way with him. I don't think it's necessarily any kind of pre-existing condition to be a journalist to be negative. It's just like, what's the real truth here?
I mean, obviously there's an argument to I guess the efficacy of treating publicly things different than you would treat them privately in order to come to the table with our adversaries and have a more constructive relationship that is a net benefit. But at the same time, Vladimir Putin is an evil person. And so I think it's a fair question to say, like, well, maybe the way that you've handled and the way you spoke about this meeting has to be like wildly out of whack with the way that you're speaking about this in private, given the fact that he is an incredible adversary and is a bad actor on the world stage. And I actually think Biden's saying, using that word public, I think it's sort of Trumpian in a way, because I think that's a way that Donald Trump he always was breaking the fourth wall, right? Like he was sort of shattering the illusion that a lot of the political establishment has worked for decades to build. And I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do either, but for Biden to do it and then to sort of fall back and try to pretend he's the normal. This is the normalcy that we were going for. I mean, here, look at this example of normalcy. When Biden talks about other countries' elections. Take a look at this clip.
How would it be if the United States were viewed by the rest of the world as interfering with the elections directly of other countries and everybody knew it? What would it be like if we engaged in activities that he is engaged in? It diminishes the standing of a country that is desperately trying to make sure it maintains its standing.
Okay.
Wow.
Unfathomable.
Well, I think anybody who does any kind of research knows that maybe the United States has been influential in elections around the world, historically speaking. Just maybe.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So, but I do agree with what he said. Russia is trying to maintain its position and its standing around the world. And, we'll see if they come to the table or whether bad guys going to be bad guys.
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert, they're going to be bad. They are absolutely going to be bad. That doesn't mean that we can't, get some stuff out of them that's overall a net positive, but they're going to be bad. And, again, just to hear this is the version of normal that Democrats promised and that Joe Biden promised and said has returned. This is the return to normalcy that was so hyped. And here you have Joe Biden. I think, again, just sort of, listen, was any of this the end of the world? No.
No, of course.
Is it embarrassing? Yes. Was it I think a bad performance by an American president? Yes. But we also are operating in this atmosphere where the bar has, I think, been lowered. And Joe Biden benefits from that immensely. He benefits from that immensely, being the juxtaposition with the very chaotic and unorthodox last administration and his own administration. And so I think we learned some of the normal in Washington was not good. And then I think we learned that some of the normal, which is just, being able to speak cogently and coherently, was good.
Very good. Make government boring again. We'll tell you what's on our radars next.